I'm sure it will be very entertaining as well, Tinku and Sonali. Thank you very much, and Tinku will be joining our commentary team for the ceremony. Hearing there about how India has embraced the games, and yes, they have, and there were some magical moments there in the stadium for the athletics, the hockey, but elsewhere the crowds were poor and the atmosphere was poor. So you have to look at the other side, is that were the games truly a success?
I actually think that you can't expect a country that doesn't have sport at its core. You know, there's only a chosen few children that participate in sport in India. It's not culturally a big deal for them. And so I wasn't that surprised that the stadiums weren't full. It did get better, but not a success from an organisational point of view, although the athletes did deliver what they set out to do. But the crowd's very disappointing.
But as an athlete, you want to perform in front, you know, have a great atmosphere and the crowd cheering as well, and that didn't happen for most of it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. When you go to a major championships, you expect a major amount of supporters there to really appreciate all the workload that you've put in and just to raise your performance. You kind of feed off that vibe, you know, and it is a little bit unfortunate, but it also depends on what they decided or judged success on. If they success judged that there was no, you know, really trauma, that all the events were ready on time, blah 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 blah, or the crowds. And to them, obviously, the success was the fact that they got everything running and we're off air when we're supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
OK, well, let's head back then to the Nehru Stadium, looking beautifully lit up in the Delhi evening, because, of course, remember, they're 4.5 hours ahead of us here. You can see the lights are on. Everyone's at home and they're ready for quite a party. And in there for us to commentate on the closing ceremony, Hugh Edwards alongside Steve Crabb. Steve, is that a happy birthday badge on your shirt?
I wonder. I'm afraid it is. It's got a number on it. 50. And it's been a good
You're there,
birthday.
I'm not quite. How come you look younger than me?
I had a very easy paper round here when I was very young. Yeah, it's been a good long day. Got up at 5 o'clock this morning. It's been a great birthday, commentated on the marathon. And I invited 60,000 people to my party tonight. Expect fireworks and everything. It's going to be a ball.
What a birthday.
Great memories to take away. Hugh, you've travelled back there. You were obviously there for the opening ceremony. What's been your reaction coming back to Delhi? Has it changed? And has the feel of the city felt different to you?
Very interesting transition, Sue, from the opening ceremony here to the Conservative conference in Birmingham, back to Delhi for this closing. The atmosphere is different. I think we were very open in the initial stages, saying it felt a bit shambolic, certainly behind the scenes. That seems to have settled, and the atmosphere here today, I've got to say, is one of celebration. Principally celebrating India's own achievements in the Games, because that's, I think, what people are really fired up about, and this today will be just one big party. What I'd say Steve and I are looking forward to as well is there is a 10-minute sequence. I won't let the surprise go for you, but Glasgow will be here in some force and in some colour and with some energy, and we're looking forward to their performance a little later.
And Steve, I know, just keep it brief because I know the ceremony's going to start shortly, but talking to Colin and Denise back here about the success, you've been there, the lack of fans around. What's been your take on the success of the Games?
I think the big message I would take away is, I think it was the security, Sue. I think there was so much concern. That was the one thing they wanted to get right. They probably overdid it to the extent that people couldn't get to venues. It wasn't that they didn't want to go, they genuinely couldn't get to venues. The marathon today summed that up. Right through the middle of Delhi, nobody able to get anywhere near to watch the race because they're so worried. Right from the very beginning, they didn't want to have a security issue. Thankfully, we'll finish tonight, and that will have been the case. But I just think that's the one thing which didn't help the Games go off with an absolute resounding success, certainly in terms of the sport. The sport in the arenas was brilliant, but we could have done with more people around it.
OK, Steve, well, enjoy your birthday party, and we look forward to quite a celebration there in Delhi.
Yes, turn around and sit down, because we're handing straight back to Hugh, to Steve, and also Tinku Ray, who will take us through what promises to be a wonderful closing ceremony. Thank you, guys.
I think you switched the inputs to something else. Sorry. Okay. No, I've just back there,
So the Games, which started in a blaze of colour and music and fireworks, well, they'll be
Ladies
closing in
and
the same way
gentlemen,
after
welcome
11 days
to the
of competition.
Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium.
Nehru
On
Stadium,
the 3rd of
pretty well
October,
packed with some
you
60,000
witnessed
people
a spectacular
looking forward to
opening
this closing ceremony.
Organised by the
Some
organising
4,000
committee
athletes, of course, have been
of the
taking part
Commonwealth
over the
Games
last
Delhi
11 days.
2010.
And we've had some pretty stunning
It was an
individual and team
amalgamation
performances.
of the many
So we'll be looking
colours,
forward a little later on to
cultures
greeting some of the
and
individual
traditions of
sportsmen
India.
as they
And we are
arrive
back
in the
here
stadium
today
itself. Before
for
that,
another
they'll need to
magnificent
welcome
event.
the dignitaries,
last
the
11
distinguished
days
guests who
have
will be
witnessed
presiding over this
greatness in
ceremony.
sport. They have witnessed grit, determination and courage. 2 world records and 100 Commonwealth Games records have been created. Ladies and gentlemen, the grand finale, the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games Delhi 2010.
And dominating the scene here in the Nehru Stadium, the great big helium balloon, the biggest helium balloon in the world, which featured so prominently in the opening ceremony, featuring very prominently again in the closing. Steve Cram with me, and Tinker Ray has now joined me in the commentary position to enjoy this closing ceremony, because I think it will all be about enjoyment, a bit of a party atmosphere. We can reflect on some of the ups and downs of the past 11 days as we go along, but there'll be plenty of music and there'll be plenty of dance and some martial arts to look forward to as well.
Please join Mr. Suresh Kalmadi, Member of Parliament and Chairman, Organising Committee, Commonwealth Games Delhi 2010, in welcoming the Honourable Michael Fennell, President, Commonwealth Games Federation.
Here we have the start of the formal welcomes. A handful of people, half a dozen of the distinguished guests will be given an individual welcome. And the first is Michael Fennell, who is President of the Commonwealth Games Federation. And being welcomed there by the gentleman on the right, just turned his back to us, who is Suresh Kalmadi, the man who's been in charge of the organisation here in Delhi.
National Advisory Council, Srimati Sonia Gandhi.
Here we have one of the most powerful women in the world today, Sonia Gandhi, who's chairperson of the United Progressive Alliance, the ruling coalition which governs India.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Royal Highness Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex and Vice Patron of the Commonwealth Games Federation.
Prince Edward, the Earl of Wessex, who's here for the closing ceremony, representing the Queen. He is Vice Patron of the CGF, and it'll be his duty to take part in the formal closing of the Games a little later on.
Please welcome the Honourable President of Sri Lanka, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa.
देवी और सज्जनों, कृपया स्वागत करें श्रीलंका के महामहिम राष्ट्रपति श्री महिंदा
Taking his place,
राजपक्षा का
President Mahinda Rajapaksa of Sri Lanka, one of the President's guests here tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honourable Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh.
A rousing cheer for Dr. Manmohan Singh, who's the Prime Minister of India. Colleague of Sonia Gandhi's, of course. Someone who still commands huge respect and popularity right across India. The first Sikh to hold this position.
And now, please welcome the Honourable Vice President of India, Shri M. Hamid Ansari.
Vice President Ansari will now take his place as the final member of the distinguished guests who are presiding over this ceremony this evening. The President herself declared the Games open, along with the Prince of Wales. Well, it's the Vice President who's here for the closing, which starts now with the National Anthem of India.
राष्ट्रीय गान के लिए खड़े हो जाएं।
The national anthem has been sung and the countdown is underway. The countdown